A millionaire saw a garbage collector with a baby in his arms and made a decision that changed everything. Alexander Vetrov was walking one morning on his way to another boring meeting when he saw something that made him freeze. A poor garbage collector sitting on a dirty curb, rocking a newborn baby in his arms. At that moment, Alexander, who had spent his entire life avoiding other people's problems, made a decision that changed not only his life, but also the fate of this stranger. This decision seemed crazy. What made him, a man who had spent his entire life valuing only his own well-being, change course so drastically? But first things first, Alexander Vetrov sat in his luxurious office, which offered a bird's-eye view of the entire city of Moscow. He was 45 years old and at the peak of his success. Rich, influential, unapproachable. His company, Vetrov Capital, was one of the most powerful in the country, and he himself was the living embodiment of success, a self-made man who had risen from poverty. "Sasha, are you daydreaming again?" came a sarcastic voice from behind him. It was his wife, Ksenia, a slender blonde with perfect manicured nails and a haughty expression. She was beautiful, but her beauty was cold and artificial. Alexander didn't even turn around. "Ksenia, we agreed that you wouldn't come in here without my permission." His voice was even, emotionless. He was a master at keeping his distance. Ksenia entered the office, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Oh, come on. What are you doing in there that's so important? Looking at your toys? At your millions? Do you even remember what day it is?" She walked over to the window and leaned against it, taking in the view. "Tomorrow evening, we have dinner with our partners from Dubai. Don't forget. They're from a very respectable family, and don't you dare embarrass me again with your antics. I'm not going to be ashamed of my husband, the country bumpkin." Alexander clenched his fists. Those words hurt him more than he wanted to admit. Country bumpkin? Antics. She constantly reminded him of his past, of the fact that he had never been part of their elite circle. He had grown up in a small provincial town where his father was an ordinary worker. All his life he had tried to shake off that stigma, but Ksenia always found a way to rub his nose in the dirt he had crawled out of. "I know my responsibilities, Ksenia, and please leave. I have a really important call," he said, trying to remain calm. Ksenia smiled, stepping away from the window. "Okay, dear. Just don't forget that I booked you an appointment at the best spa today. You look tired, and you smell not very good. Probably from your important business." She lingered at the door before leaving. "And one more thing, I'm having dinner with my mother and friends tonight. I'll be home late. Don't wait up. And don't you dare get drunk alone again like last time. It looks pathetic. And don't forget that I found that job for you, and I can take it away." The door closed, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and a bitter aftertaste. Alexander closed his eyes. He knew this marriage was a mistake. He had married her for status, for connections, to finally establish himself in this world. But all he got was humiliation and contempt. He was rich but lonely. He had a wife, but he felt lonelier than ever. Just as he was thinking about his worthless life, the doorbell rang. It was his personal assistant, Maxim. "Alexander Vladimirovich, I'm sorry to bother you, but I have bad news. We lost a major contract. Our partner, Energoprom, has refused to cooperate. And there's something else. It looks like they've switched to our competitors, to Alpha Invest." Alexander couldn't believe his ears. Alpha Invest was the company of his main competitor, Dmitry Volkov, a man who, like him, had risen from the bottom. But unlike Alexander, Dmitry was more cynical and ruthless. They were like two sides of the same coin, but always stood on opposite sides of the barricades. "How could this happen, Maxim? What the hell is going on?" Alexander's voice was full of rage. "I don't pay you just for the sake of paying you. I pay you to keep an eye on everything that's going on. How could you miss this?" I don't know, Alexander Vladimirovich. I looked through all the reports. A few days earlier, they were absolutely sure the deal was done. Everything was ready to be signed. And then, suddenly, without explanation, they backed out. I tried to contact them, but they're not answering their phones. And, according to my information, Volkov has a new assistant. Young, but very smart. They say he's from a very influential family. He probably had a hand in this. Alexander clenched the phone in his hand. He felt anger filling him up inside. Okay, Maxim, I'll take care of it. But if I lose anything else because of you, you'll be out of here so fast you won't even have time to pack your things. Do you understand me? Yes, Alexander Vladimirovich. I understand everything. I'm already gathering information, digging up everything I can find about this new assistant. I'll do everything to keep you informed of his every move. Good. I'll be waiting. And one more thing. Send all the reports on this contract to my email. I'll look into everything myself. Immediately, Alexander hung up. He understood that this was not just the loss of a contract. It was the beginning of a war. Dmitry Volkov had declared war on him, and he was ready to accept it. But this thought did not bring him satisfaction. He felt empty. All these years he had been chasing success, money, recognition, but what had he gotten in the end? Loneliness, contempt, and constant struggle. He suddenly wanted to escape from it all, from his luxurious apartment, his cold wife, his endless problems. He just wanted to get in his car and drive away to somewhere where no one would find him. He made a decision. He would take a vacation for a few days, just to get his thoughts in order. He needed to reboot. The next day, instead of going to work, Alexander got into his expensive sports car and drove out of town. He drove along the country highway, watching the city skyscrapers give way to green fields. It was at that moment that he saw him, the garbage man. The garbage collector was sitting on a dirty curb, clutching a small bundle. Alexander drove past, but something made him brake and reverse. He pulled up to the curb and got out of the car. The man looked up. His face was covered in dirt and his clothes were torn. But in his eyes, Alexander saw something that made his heart ache. Pain. Hopelessness. "Sir, are you okay?" Alexander asked. The garbage man looked at him suspiciously. "What do you want?" he replied in a hoarse voice. I just saw you, and this child. Is she yours?" "She's mine," replied the garbage man, clutching the bundle closer to himself. "But I don't know what to do with her. Her mother died. Yesterday. The birth was difficult, and I'm alone. I don't know how I'm going to feed her. I don't know how I'm going to raise her." Alexander stepped closer. He saw that the bundle contained a small, fragile baby. She was sleeping, clinging to her father. "What's her name?" Alexander asked. "Nastia," replied the garbage collector, tears glistening in his eyes. "She was born yesterday, and her mother died. I have nowhere to go. I have no money, no job. What am I going to do?" Alexander looked at this man, at this child, and suddenly realized that all his problems, his money, his business, his wife, were nothing compared to what this man was going through. He suddenly realized that his life, which had seemed so perfect to him, was empty. He suddenly made a decision that changed everything. "Listen, I can help you," he said, looking the garbage collector straight in the eye. "I don't know how, but I can. I have the means to make sure you and your daughter never go hungry again." "Why would you do that?" asked the garbage collector, looking at him suspiciously. "You're a rich man. You don't care about people like me." "Maybe I don't," Alexander replied. "But today I feel like I do. Listen, I have money, I have connections. I can help you and this child. I don't know why, but I have to do it." The garbage collector didn't know what to say. He looked at this man, at his expensive car, at his expensive clothes, and couldn't believe his ears. "What do you want in return?" he asked. "I know nothing comes for free. Do you want me to work for you, or something else?" "Nothing," Alexander replied. "I don't want anything in return. I just want to help. And if you let me, I'll take care of both of you. I'll give you money. I'll help you find a job. I'll take care of the child. I just want to help. Please believe me." Something changed in the garbage collector's eyes. Distrust gave way to hope. You mean it?" he asked. "More than I've ever meant anything in my life," Alexander replied. "Come on, get in my car. We'll go to town. I'll buy you some new clothes. We'll take the child to the doctor, and we'll find you a job. Let's go." The garbage collector stood up. He looked at his child, then at Alexander. "My name is Victor," he said. Thank you. Thank you so much." "And I'm Alexander," Alexander replied, and for the first time in a long time, a sincere smile appeared on his face. "Let's go, Victor. A new life awaits us." That is how this unexpected alliance began. an alliance between two people from two completely different worlds, united by one small, fragile baby and one unexpected, but very important decision. Alexander did not yet know what trials awaited him, how his decision would affect his life, his business, and his family, but he felt that he had finally done something right, something that was more important than all his money and all his power. The decision was made. Alexander Vetrov, a billionaire who, just a few hours ago, thought his life was perfect, was now standing on the side of the road with a beggar and a newborn baby. The sun was already rising higher, flooding the surroundings with golden light. But for Alexander, this light was not just the dawn of a new day, but the dawn of a new, completely unpredictable life. "Victor, let's go," Alexander said, opening the back door of his luxury car. "Nastia needs warmth and food, and a doctor, urgently." Victor, still clutching Nastia in his dirty hands, hesitantly stepped toward the car. His gaze darted between the luxurious interior and Alexander, as if trying to find a catch. I don't know how to thank you, Alexander," Victor croaked, his voice trembling with exhaustion and distrust. "But why are you doing this? People like you don't usually notice people like me. We're nothing to you, just trash under your feet." Alexander froze for a moment. Victor's words struck him to the core. He remembered how Xenia had called him a bumpkin and looked at him with contempt. He, Alexander Vetrov, a billionaire, was as much trash to her as Victor was to the rest of the world. "It doesn't matter, Victor," Alexander replied, trying to hide his emotions. "Just get in. We can't waste any time. The child is more important." Victor carefully got into the car, trying not to dirty the leather seats. He held Nastia close to him, as if afraid that someone would take her away. Alexander got behind the wheel and started the engine. The car moved smoothly, leaving behind the dirty roadside and Victor's old life. "Where are we going?" Victor asked, looking around. "To the hospital first," Alexander replied. "Nastia needs to be seen by a doctor. Then we'll decide. I have a house outside the city. It's quiet and peaceful there. You can stay there until we find something permanent for you." Victor was silent. He couldn't believe what was happening. Just yesterday he was on the verge of despair, and today he was riding in a luxury car with a man who promised him a new life. I don't know what to say," Victor finally managed to say. "I never thought this could happen. I thought I was worthless, useless, that I couldn't give my daughter anything but poverty. I thought about putting her in an orphanage. I didn't want her to suffer because of me." Alexander glanced at him quickly. "Don't say that, Victor. You're not worthless. You just found yourself in a difficult situation, and you're not alone. We'll get through this. Together." These words, spoken by Alexander, a man who had avoided any kind of commitment his entire life, sounded unexpected to him. He, who had always been selfish, suddenly felt responsible for these two strangers. And this feeling was strange, but at the same time, pleasant. They were driving down the highway, and Alexander felt the tension gradually leaving his body. He wasn't thinking about business, about Xenia, about his problems. He was thinking only about Nastia, about her small, fragile body, about her future. When he arrived in the city, Alexander headed for a private clinic where he had connections. He didn't want to attract unnecessary attention. The doctor, an old acquaintance of Alexander's, was surprised to see him arrive with such an unusual patient. "Alexander Vladimirovich, what is this surprise?" asked Dr. Ivanov, an elderly man with kind eyes. "Sergei Petrovich, this is Nastia," Alexander replied. "She was born yesterday. Her mother died. And this is her father, Victor. They need help. Urgently. Nastia needs a full examination. And Victor too. He looks unwell." Despite his surprise, Dr. Ivanov quickly pulled himself together. He was a professional. He examined Nastia, then Victor. "The girl is weak, but she will live," said the doctor as he left the office. "She needs good nutrition, warmth, and care. And, of course, vaccinations. And Victor needs to rest, eat, and wash up. And, of course, a medical examination. He is exhausted and hypothermic. But nothing critical, just severe fatigue." Alexander felt a huge sense of relief. "Thank you, Sergei Petrovich. What do they need? I'll pay for everything." "Don't worry, Alexander Vladimirovich. replied the doctor. I'll take care of everything. You can wait in the reception room. I'll be done in an hour. While the doctor examined Nastya and Victor, Alexander sat in the reception room, trying to comprehend what was happening. His cell phone was ringing off the hook. It was Ksenia and Maxim. He ignored them. He had other priorities right now. An hour later, Dr. Ivanov came out of the office. Everything is ready, he said. Nastya is fine. I gave Victor recommendations on how to care for her, and he has come to his senses a little. I prescribed him vitamins and a sedative. He needs rest. Excellent, said Alexander. Thank you very much, Sergei Petrovich. You've been a great help. You're welcome, Alexander Vladimirovich, replied the doctor with a smile. It's nice to see you so human. It suits you. Alexander nodded. He didn't know what to say. He felt like a different person himself. When Victor and Nastya came out of the office, Alexander saw that Victor was already looking a little better. He was holding Nastya in his arms, and there was a spark of hope in his eyes. Thank you, Alexander, said Victor. Thank you for everything. I will never forget this. Don't mention it, Alexander replied. Now let's go. We need to buy you some clothes and everything you need for Nastya. They drove to one of the most expensive shopping centers. Alexander bought Victor new clothes, shoes, and toiletries. He even bought him a new phone. For Nastya, he bought everything he could imagine: a stroller, a crib, diapers, bottles, toys. He bought everything he saw, as if trying to compensate for what he never had as a child. Alexander, this is too much, said Victor, looking at the mountains of bags. I can't accept this. You can, Alexander replied. This isn't a gift. It's a necessity. Nastya needs all of this. And so do you. You have to look presentable. You're a father. You have to be strong. Victor was silent, but his eyes showed deep gratitude. Now, let's go to my country house, Alexander said. You can rest there, and I can help you with your work. They arrived at Alexander's huge mansion, located in a picturesque spot outside the city. The house was surrounded by a large garden, and the windows overlooked a forest and a lake. Wow, was all Victor could say as he looked at the luxury around him. I've never seen anything like this before. This is your home until you find your own, Alexander said. Make yourselves comfortable. I'll show you your room. Alexander led Victor and Nastya to the guest bedroom. The room was spacious and bright, with a large bed and its own bathroom. This is where you'll be staying, Alexander said. If you need anything, just let me know. Victor put Nastya in the crib Alexander had just bought. The baby slept sweetly, unaware of the changes that had taken place in her life. Alexander, I don't know how I can ever repay you for all this, Victor said, looking at him. You don't have to repay me, Alexander replied. Just take care of Nastya, that's all I need. Alexander left Victor and Nastya alone to give them a chance to rest. He went to his office to finally deal with his calls. Ksenia was the first to call. Her voice was full of rage. Alexander, where have you been? I've been calling you all day. Do you know how many problems I've had because you disappeared? Have you completely lost your mind? You left me alone when we had an important dinner with our partners. You're a worthless, irresponsible egoist. You only ever think about yourself. Alexander listened to her monologue, and a wave of disgust rose in his soul. He suddenly realized how empty and superficial she was. Ksenia, calm down, Alexander said. I had things to do. Very important things. And I'm not going to report to you. You're not going to explain yourself? Ksenia shouted. You're my husband. You owe me an explanation. You're supposed to be with me. You're supposed to represent me in society. And what are you doing? You disappear without a word. You're embarrassing me. You're a nobody. You've never been good enough for me. You always were and always will be a country bumpkin who knows nothing about real life. Ksenia, stop it. Alexander's voice was cold as ice. I'm tired of your insults. I'm tired of your constant dissatisfaction. I'm tired of you. There was silence on the other end of the line. Ksenia seemed shocked by his words. What did you say? She finally whispered. You dare talk to me like that? I dare, Alexander replied. And I'll tell you something else. I've made a decision. I want a divorce. Silence. Then a piercing scream rang out. Divorce? Are you out of your mind? You can't do that. You can't leave me. I'm your wife. I gave you everything. I made you who you are. And you're just a worthless, ungrateful bastard. I'm going to do it, Ksenia, Alexander said. And there's nothing you can do about it. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of this life. I want to start over. Without you. He hung up without waiting for her response. His hand was shaking. He knew it would be difficult. Xenia would not give up without a fight, but he was ready for that. He was ready to fight for his new life. The next call was from Maxim. Alexander Vladimirovich, thank God you're there. I was so worried. What happened? Why didn't you answer your calls? And Ksenia Andreevna, she's furious. She said that you want a divorce. Is that true? It's true, Maxim, Alexander replied. And it's none of your business. Right now, the business is what matters. What's going on with Energoprom? They've completely switched to Alpha Invest, Maxim replied. And Volkov. He started an aggressive campaign against us. He's trying to poach our clients and our employees. He wants to destroy us. I know, Alexander said, but I can't think about that right now. I need time. I'll be back in a few days. In the meantime, you have to handle things yourself. Protect our interests. Don't give Volkov a single chance. Do you understand me? Yes, Alexander Vladimirovich. I'll do everything in my power, Maxim replied, his voice sounding uncertain. Alexander hung up. He knew he had left Maxim alone on the battlefield, but he couldn't have done anything else. Right now, he needed to focus on Nastya and Victor. He went to the guest bedroom. Victor was sitting by the crib, watching Nastya sleep. How is she? Alexander asked. She's sleeping, Victor replied. She's so small and so defenseless. I'm scared, Alexander. I'm scared I won't be able to handle it. I've never been a good father. I don't even know how to feed her. I'm useless. Don't say that, Victor, Alexander said, sitting down next to him. You'll be fine. You're already doing fine. And I'll help you. I'll teach you everything I know. And together we'll learn what we don't know. They sat in silence, watching Nastya sleep. Alexander felt something changing inside him. He, who had always been cold and distant, suddenly felt warmth. Warmth that emanated from this small, defenseless creature. Tell me about yourself, Victor, Alexander said. How did you end up in this situation? What happened to Nastya's mother? Victor sighed heavily. My life, it's never been easy, Alexander. I grew up in an orphanage. I never knew my parents. When I turned 18, I was kicked out onto the street. I had no education, no job. I got by doing odd jobs. I was a porter, a janitor, a garbage collector, anything I could find. I lived from hand to mouth. I slept wherever I could. He fell silent, remembering his past. And then I met her, Victor continued. Her name was Anna. She worked as a cleaner in a cafe. She was so kind, so bright. She was the only person who ever showed me kindness. We fell in love. We dreamed of a different life. We dreamed of a family, a home, children. Victor's voice faltered. But life turned out to be cruel. Anna got pregnant. We were so happy. We thought this was our chance, a chance to start over. But then the problem started. Anna got sick. The doctors said she needed expensive treatment. We didn't have any money. I worked non-stop. But it wasn't enough. I tried to borrow money, but no one would lend me any. I even tried to steal, but I got caught. I was so ashamed. Alexander listened to him, and a wave of sympathy rose in his heart. He, who had never known hardship, suddenly understood what this man had gone through. I did everything I could, Victor continued, but it wasn't enough. Anna was getting worse and worse, and then she went into labor. It was very difficult. The doctors said we had to choose, either save her or the baby. I couldn't choose. I begged them to save both of them, but they said it was impossible. And then Anna said to me, save Nastya. Take care of her. She has to live. And she died. She died so that Nastya could live. And I was left alone, with a small child in my arms, and I didn't know what to do. I was desperate. Victor covered his face with his hands. He was crying. Alexander sat silently beside him, feeling his own heart tighten with pain. I understand, Alexander said. It's terrible, but it's not your fault. You did everything you could, and now you have to be strong for Nastya. She needs you. Victor raised his head. His eyes were red, but there was no longer any despair in them. I'll be strong, Alexander, Victor said. I'll be strong for her, and I'll never forget what you did for us. You gave us a second chance. You saved us. Alexander nodded. He felt that his decision was the right one. He had finally found meaning in his life. meaning that was far more important than all his money and power. Over the next few days, Alexander devoted himself entirely to Victor and Nastya. He hired a nanny to help Victor take care of the baby. He spent a lot of time with Nastya himself, playing with her and talking to her. He even learned how to change diapers. It was strange, but at the same time, amazing. He felt alive. He also started helping Victor find a job. He used his connections to find Victor a position at one of his companies. It wasn't a high-ranking position, of course, but it provided a stable income and opportunities for growth. Victor was grateful. He worked hard to justify Alexander's trust in him. Meanwhile, Ksenia did not give up. She called Alexander every day, threatening him with court, division of property, and a public scandal. She even tried to come to his country house, but the security guards did not let her in. "You'll regret this, Alexander," she shouted into the phone. "You don't know what I'm capable of. I'll destroy you. I'll take everything from you. You'll be left with nothing, you worthless, pathetic loser." Alexander listened to her threats, but they no longer frightened him as much as they had before. He knew she would fight, but he was ready for it. Dmitry Volkov wasn't sitting idly by either. He continued to attack Alexander's business. Maxim reported new losses, poaching of clients, and attempts at a hostile takeover. "Alexander Vladimirovich, we're losing ground," Maxim said on the phone. "Volkov is acting very aggressively. He is using all his connections. He is even trying to bribe our key employees. If you don't come back, we could lose everything." Alexander understood the seriousness of the situation. He couldn't let Volkov destroy his business, but he also couldn't abandon Victor and Nastya. "Maxim, hang in there," Alexander said. "I'll be back soon. In the meantime, you have to be strong, and don't forget, we won't give up. We'll fight to the end." Alexander sat in his office, looking at Nastya sleeping in her crib. He felt his life falling apart. On the one hand, there was his old life, full of struggle, money, and power. On the other, there was his new life, full of meaning, love, and responsibility. He had to make a choice. He looked at Nastya. Her little face was so serene. She was his hope, his future. "I won't abandon you, Nastya," Alexander whispered. "I won't abandon either of you. I'll find a way. I'll manage." He knew he would have to face Ksenia and Dmitry Volkov. He would have to fight for his business, for his freedom, for his new life. But he was ready. He was ready for any battle because now he had something worth fighting for. Alexander greeted the next morning with unusual determination. He had breakfast with Victor and Nastya, feeling calmness and warmth filling him from within. Nastya slept peacefully in her crib, and Victor, though he looked tired, was no longer the broken man Alexander had met on the side of the road. "Victor, I have to go back to Moscow," Alexander said, putting down his coffee cup. "My business is in danger, but I won't leave you. The nanny will be here around the clock, and I'll call every day. If you need anything, call Maxim right away. He's my assistant. He'll take care of everything." Victor nodded. "I understand, Alexander. You've already done more for us than anyone else. I'll manage. And Nastya will be safe." "I know," Alexander replied, looking him in the eyes. "And I believe in you, Victor. You're a strong man. You'll manage everything." Before leaving, Alexander approached Nastya's crib. He gently stroked her cheek. "I'll be back, my little one," he whispered. "I'll definitely be back." The road to Moscow seemed shorter than usual. Alexander felt a surge of energy. He knew that a battle awaited him, but now he had a goal worth fighting for. He was no longer alone. When Alexander arrived at his Moscow apartment, he found Ksenia waiting for him. She was sitting in the living room with her arms crossed over her chest, her face contorted with anger. "You finally deigned to show up, you worthless bastard," she hissed as soon as he entered. "You think you can just disappear and then come back as if nothing happened? You think you can just abandon me? You're wrong, Alexander. You're very wrong." Alexander calmly took off his jacket. "I didn't come here to argue, Ksenia. I came to discuss our divorce. I've already contacted my lawyer. He'll prepare all the necessary documents." Ksenia jumped up from the sofa. "Divorce? Are you out of your mind? You won't get a divorce. I won't give you a divorce. I'll destroy you. I'll take everything you have. You'll be left with nothing. You'll crawl at my feet begging for mercy." "You can threaten me all you want, Ksenia." Alexander's voice was even and calm. "But it won't change anything. I've made my decision. And I won't back down." "You won't back down?" Ksenia laughed, but there was no joy in her laughter, only venom. Have you forgotten who you are, Alexander? Have you forgotten where you came from? You're a nobody. You were a nobody when I met you. I made you a man. I gave you status, connections, money, and you're just a worthless, ungrateful upstart. You think you can live without me? You're wrong. You'll regret this for the rest of your life. I don't regret anything, Ksenia, Alexander replied, and I'm not going to listen to your insults. I came here to settle this peacefully. If you don't want to, then we'll settle it in court. But I'm warning you, I'm not going to give you a penny more than what you're entitled to by law, and I won't let you ruin my name. You won't let me? Ksenia stepped close to him, her eyes burning with anger. Have you forgotten what I know about you, Alexander? I know all your secrets. I know how you earned your first money. I know how you cheated your partners. I know everything, and I won't be afraid to use it against you. I'll make sure you lose everything. You'll regret ever getting involved with me. Alexander smiled. You can try, Ksenia, but you won't achieve anything. I'm ready for any battle, and I'm not afraid of you. He turned and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Ksenia shouted. You can't just leave like that. We're not done yet. We're done, Ksenia, Alexander replied without turning around. Our marriage is over, and so is our life together. He left the apartment, leaving Ksenia alone in her rage. He knew this was only the beginning, but he was ready for it. When he arrived at his office, Alexander immediately called Maxime. What's going on, Maxime? Alexander asked as he entered the office. Tell me everything, in detail. Maxime looked exhausted. Alexander Vladimirovich, Volkov is acting very aggressively. He has poached several of our key clients. They have terminated their contracts and switched to him. And he is trying to poach our employees. He is offering them salaries twice as high. Some have already left. Who left? Alexander's voice was tense. The head of sales, the financial director, and several senior managers, Maxime replied. They said that Volkov offered them terms they couldn't refuse, and he's spreading rumors about us. He's saying that our company is on the verge of bankruptcy, that we're unreliable partners. Alexander clenched his fists. That bastard, he wants to destroy me, but he doesn't know who he's dealing with. What are we going to do, Alexander Vladimirovich? Maxime asked. We're losing ground. If we don't do something urgently, we could lose everything. We'll fight, Maxim, Alexander replied. We'll fight to the end. I won't let Volkov destroy what I've built my whole life, and I won't let him win. He thinks I'm broken, but he's wrong. I've become stronger, I've become tougher, and I'm ready for war. Alexander spent the entire day in his office, studying reports, holding meetings, and developing a strategy. He could feel his brain working at full capacity. He was more focused than he had ever been before. Maxime, contact all of our key partners, Alexander said. Explain the situation to them. Tell them we're going through some temporary difficulties, but we'll get through it. Offer them discounts, bonuses, do whatever it takes to keep them. But Alexander Vladimirovich, that will cost us a fortune, Maxime objected. I know, Alexander replied, but it's better than losing everything. And another thing, find me some information about Volkov's new assistant. Who is he? Where did he come from? What connections does he have? I've already started gathering information, Maxime replied. His name is Igor Sokolov. He comes from a very influential family. His father is a high-ranking official, and he has a very sharp mind. They say he's a real genius at financial machinations. Excellent, said Alexander. So we have a new enemy, and we must be ready for him. Alexander worked late into the night. He felt tired, but at the same time energized. He knew he had a lot to go through, but he was ready for it. He was ready to fight for his future. The next day, Alexander met with his lawyer, Igor Petrov. Igor was an experienced lawyer who specialized in divorce cases. Alexander Vladimirovich, Ksenia Andreevna is very aggressive, said Igor Petrov. She is demanding half of your fortune, and she is threatening to make it public. She says she has compromising information on you. Let her threaten, replied Alexander. I'm ready for that. I'm not going to give her a penny more than she's entitled to by law, and I won't let her ruin my name. As for compromising material, let her try. She's got nothing. She claims she has evidence of your financial fraud, said Igor Petrov. And she says she has witnesses who will confirm that you treated her badly. Alexander smiled. She's lying. I've never been involved in any fraud. And I've never laid a hand on her. She's just trying to get more money out of me. But she won't succeed. I understand, Alexander Vladimirovich, said Igor Petrov. But we must be prepared for anything. Divorce proceedings can be very messy, especially when such large sums of money are involved. I know, replied Alexander, but I'm ready for it. I'm ready to fight, and I won't give up. Igor Petrov nodded. All right, I'll prepare all the necessary documents. We'll file for divorce tomorrow, and we'll fight for every point. Alexander returned to the office, where new problems awaited him. Volkov continued his attack. He tried to lure away even more clients and employees. He even began spreading false information about Vetrov Capital's products in an attempt to undermine its reputation. Alexander Vladimirovich, this is becoming unbearable, said Maxim. We're losing money. Our shares are falling. If this continues, we could go bankrupt. We won't go bankrupt, Maxim, Alexander replied. We will fight. We have a plan. Alexander developed a new strategy. He decided not just to defend himself, but to attack. He began gathering information about Dmitry Volkov, his business, and his connections. He knew that Volkov also had weaknesses, and he was going to use them. He also decided to rebrand his company. He wanted to change its image, make it more modern and more attractive to customers. He wanted to show everyone that Vetrov Capital was not just a company that made money, but a company that cared about its customers, its employees, and its future. Maxim, I want you to find the best marketing and advertising specialists, Alexander said. We're going to launch a new advertising campaign. We'll show everyone that we're strong, that we're not broken, that we're ready for new challenges. Maxim nodded. I'll do everything in my power, Alexander Vladimirovich. Alexander worked non-stop. He slept only a few hours a day. He lived in the office. But he didn't feel tired. He felt a surge of energy. He felt that he was finally doing something important. Every evening he called Victor. He asked about Nastya, about her health, about her progress. He listened to his stories about how Nastya smiled, how she tried to crawl, how she made her first sounds. These conversations gave him strength. They reminded him of what he was fighting for. One evening, as Alexander was sitting in his office, the phone rang. It was Victor. Alexander, Nastya, she's sick. Victor's voice trembled. She has a fever. She's crying. I don't know what to do. Alexander's heart sank. Don't worry, Victor. I'll be right there. I'll call a doctor. Everything will be fine. He dropped everything and drove to his country house. He drove as fast as he could, feeling fear gripping him from within. He was afraid for Nastya. He was afraid that something had happened to her. When he arrived at the house, Alexander immediately ran to the guest bedroom. Nastya was lying in her crib, her face red, breathing heavily. Victor was sitting next to her, trying to calm her down. What happened? Alexander asked. I don't know, Victor replied. She just started crying, and her temperature rose. I gave her some fever reducer, but it's not helping. Alexander called his friend, Dr. Ivanov. Sergei Petrovich arrived half an hour later. He examined Nastya. It's just a common cold, said the doctor. Nothing serious, just give her more fluids and fever reducer, and, of course, rest. She'll be fine in a few days. Alexander felt a huge sense of relief. He thanked Dr. Ivanov and showed him out. He stayed with Victor and Nastya. He sat by the crib, watching Nastya sleep. He felt his heart fill with love. He realized that Nastya had become much more to him than just a child he had helped. She had become his daughter. Alexander, you were so worried, said Victor. I could see it. You love her, don't you? Alexander nodded. Yes, Victor. I love her. She has become the most important person in my life. Victor smiled. I'm glad. I'm very glad she found a father like you. You're not worthless. You're the best person I've ever met. Alexander felt tears welling up in his eyes. He had never heard such words before. He had never felt so needed, so loved. Thank you, Victor, Alexander said. Thank you for everything. You've become a very important person to me, too. You're my friend, my family. They sat in silence, watching Nastya sleep. It was already dawn outside. A new day brought new challenges, but Alexander was ready for them. He was ready for any battle because now he had something worth fighting for. He had a family. The days merged into one endless marathon. Alexander was torn between the office, where a fierce battle for the survival of his empire was raging, and the country house, where Victor and Nastya were waiting for him. Every phone call, every message was a reminder of the two fronts on which he was fighting. Alexander Vladimirovich, Volkov has intercepted another of our tenders. Maxim's voice on the phone was full of despair. It was a big project. We were really counting on it. He's acting like a predator who smells blood. And that Sokolov, he's just evil. It's like he knows our every move. Alexander clenched his jaw. He sat in his office, staring at the monitor screen, where graphs of falling stock prices flashed by. Maxim, calm down. We can't panic. What exactly did he do? How did he manage to win the tender? He offered a lower price than ours, but guaranteed shorter completion times, Maxim explained, and he provided some incredible guarantees. Our client, Grand Stroy, didn't even listen to our counter-arguments. They just said that Volkov's offer was too good to refuse. Too good to refuse, you say? Alexander thought for a moment. So either he's bluffing or he has some kind of trump card up his sleeve. Maxim, check all his recent deals, find any clues, any inconsistencies. I'm sure he's made a mistake somewhere. No one can be that perfect. I already tried, Alexander Vladimirovich, Maxim replied. But everything is clean. Sokolov works flawlessly. It's as if he can predict our every move. It's frightening. Don't be afraid, Maxim. Alexander's voice became harsher. Fear is the last thing we need right now. We must remain calm, and we must find his weak spot. Everyone has one, even the devil. Alexander hung up and leaned back in his chair. He felt waves of fatigue washing over him, but he couldn't allow himself to relax. Everything was at stake. His business, his reputation, and, most importantly, Nastya's future. He couldn't let her down. That evening, Igor Petrov called him. Alexander Vladimirovich, Ksenia Andreevna has filed a counterclaim, the lawyer said. She is accusing you of abuse and is demanding not only half of your property, but also moral compensation in the amount of 100 million rubles. She is also trying to contest the marriage contract, claiming that it was signed under duress. Alexander smiled. 100 million? She's completely lost her mind? And cruel treatment? That's ridiculous. She knows perfectly well that it's a lie. She has no evidence. She claims she has witnesses who will confirm her words, said Igor Petrov, and she's already hired a very powerful lawyer. It seems she's very serious. Let her hire whoever she wants, Alexander replied. I'm not afraid. I'm ready for any battle, and I'm not going to give her a penny more than what is required by law. She won't get a cent from me for her false accusations. I understand your position, Alexander Vladimirovich, said the lawyer, but this will be a long and grueling process. She will try to discredit you in the press using every dirty trick in the book. You have to be prepared for that. I'm ready, Alexander replied. Let her do whatever she wants. I won't let her break me. I'll get through this, and I'll come out the winner. He hung up the phone. Ksenia was a raging fury. Her greed and malice knew no bounds. But Alexander knew that her motives were simple. She wanted money, and she wanted revenge for him, daring to leave her. She was a worthless fool who valued only outward appearances, but now her worthlessness was fully revealed. He decided he needed a break. He called Victor. How's Nastya? Alexander asked. Everything's fine, Alexander, Victor replied. Her temperature's gone down. She's already playing and smiling. She's so cute, and she's growing so fast. Today she said, Papa, for the first time. Alexander's heart melted with tenderness. Really? Papa? That's wonderful, Victor. You're doing great. You're doing it. I'm so glad you have her. I'm glad I have her too. Victor's voice was full of warmth. And I'm glad I have you, Alexander. You saved us. You gave me a chance to be a real father. I never thought I could be useful to anyone, but now I feel needed. Nastya needs me. You are needed, Victor, Alexander said. And you'll manage, I'm sure of it. I'll be there soon. I want to see Nastya. Come, Alexander, Victor replied. We'll be waiting for you. These words gave Alexander new strength. He felt that for Nastya and Victor he was ready to go through fire and water. The next day, Alexander sprang into action. He assembled a team of his most loyal and talented employees. He explained the situation to them, not hiding the seriousness of the situation. I know it will be difficult, Alexander said, looking around at his subordinates. Volkov is powerful, and he will stop at nothing. But we are also strong, and we have an advantage. We know what we are fighting for. We are fighting for our company, for our reputation, for our future, and we will not give up. Alexander Vladimirovich, we are with you, said one of the managers, Alexei. We will not let Volkov destroy everything you have built. I believe in you, my friends, Alexander replied, and I promise you, if we win, each of you will get your share of the success. We will work as one team, and we will win. Alexander began to implement his new strategy. He launched an aggressive advertising campaign that emphasized the reliability and stability of Vetrov Capital. He offered his clients new, more favorable terms of cooperation. He even organized several charity events to improve the company's image. Alexander Vladimirovich, it's working, Maxim reported happily a few days later. Our clients are coming back, and we're getting new orders. It seems that people are beginning to understand that the rumors about our bankruptcy are lies. Excellent, Maxim, Alexander replied. But this is only the beginning. We must keep up the pressure. We have to show Volkov that we are not broken, and that we are ready for new challenges. Meanwhile, Alexander continued to gather information about Igor Sokolov. He hired a private detective to find out everything about Volkov's assistant's past. Soon, the detective brought him some interesting information. Alexander Vladimirovich, I found something interesting about Igor Sokolov, said the detective, sitting in Alexander's office. He's not as clean as he seems. He has a dark past. A few years ago, he was involved in a major financial scandal. He worked for an investment fund that went bankrupt, leaving its investors with nothing. And Sokolov disappeared right after that. It looks like he had a hand in the bankruptcy, but he managed to get away with it. His father, a high-ranking official, helped him cover it up. Alexander felt a rush of adrenaline. So he has a weak spot, and we found it. Excellent. What else? He is very ambitious, the detective continued. He is willing to do anything for power and money. He has always sought influential patrons. First it was that foundation, now it's Volkov. He uses people and then discards them when they are no longer useful to him. So he's a rat, Alexander whispered, and he'll betray Volkov as soon as it suits him. Excellent. This is our chance. Alexander devised a new plan. He decided to use information about Sokolov's past against him. He was going to expose him, show Volkov that his new assistant was a traitor who would sell anyone for his own gain. But before he could do that, he had to deal with Ksenia. The divorce proceedings began. Ksenia arrived at the court accompanied by her lawyer, her face full of arrogance. Your Honor, my husband, Alexander Vetrov, is a cruel and irresponsible man. Ksenia began, her voice full of drama. He constantly humiliated me, insulted me, threatened me. He even raised his hand against me. I have lived in fear all these years, and now he wants to leave me with nothing. He is a worthless, heartless monster. Alexander listened to her lies, and a wave of anger rose in his heart. But he remained calm. He knew this was her game. Your Honor, this is all a lie, said Igor Petrov, Alexander's lawyer. My client is just trying to get more money out of my client. She has no proof of her words, and we are ready to provide witnesses who will confirm that she herself is an aggressive and greedy person. The judge listened to both sides. He scheduled the next hearing for a week later. Alexander Vladimirovich, this is going to be tough, said Igor Petrov as they left the courtroom. She'll play on your pity and use every dirty trick in the book, but we'll get through this. The main thing is not to give in to her provocations. I won't give in, Igor, Alexander replied. I'm ready for this. I won't let her break me. I'll get through this, and I'll come out the winner. He returned to the office, where new problems awaited him. Volkov continued his attack. He tried to lure away even more clients and employees. He even began spreading false information about Vetrov Capital's products in an attempt to undermine its reputation. Alexander Vladimirovich, we must act quickly, Maxim said. Volkov is preparing for a decisive blow. He wants to announce our bankruptcy. If he does, we will lose everything. I know, Maxim, Alexander replied, but I have a plan. We will expose Sokolov. We will show Volkov who he really is. And then Volkov will lose his main ally. And that will be our chance. Alexander contacted a journalist he trusted. He gave him all the information about Igor Sokolov's past. The journalist promised to investigate and publish an article. That's risky, Alexander Vladimirovich, said Maxim. If Volkov finds out that you leaked the information, he'll stop at nothing. I know, Alexander replied, but we have no other choice. We have to take the risk. We have to win. A few days later, an article exposing Igor Sokolov's past was published in one of the leading newspapers. The article caused a real sensation. Sokolov's reputation was destroyed, and Dmitry Volkov was furious. Sokolov, what the hell is this? Volkov shouted, throwing the newspaper on the table. What kind of lies are these? Have you completely lost your mind? You set me up. You disgraced me. Igor Sokolov turned pale. Dmitry Vladimirovich, this is all a lie. This is slander. This is Vetrov's doing. He's trying to frame me. He's trying to destroy us. Don't lie to me, Sokolov. Volkov slammed his fist on the table. I know it's true. I checked. You were involved in that scandal. You deceived people. You used me. You're a worthless, lying bastard. Dmitry Vladimirovich, I can explain everything, Sokolov stammered. You can't explain anything. Volkov grabbed him by the collar. You're fired, and if I ever see you near my company again, I'll destroy you. Do you understand me? Igor Sokolov ran out of Volkov's office, his face white as a sheet. He had lost everything. Alexander found out about this from Maxim. Alexander Vladimirovich, it worked, Maxim reported happily. Sokolov is fired. Volkov is furious. He has lost his main ally. This is our victory. This is only the beginning, Maxim, Alexander replied. But it's a good start. Now we have to finish him off. We have to show him who the real winner is here. Alexander felt a surge of strength. He knew the battle wasn't over yet, but he was confident of victory. He was ready for new challenges because now he had something worth fighting for. He had a family. After Sokolov's downfall, Dmitry Volkov was left without his chief strategist. His rage was boundless, but now it was directed not only at Vetrov, but also at himself for trusting such a worthless traitor. Alexander, on the contrary, felt a surge of strength. He knew that the moment for the decisive blow had come. Maxim. How's Volkov? Alexander asked as he entered the office the next morning. He looked fresh and rested, which could not be said about Maxim, who had spent a sleepless night tracking his competitor's every move. Alexander Vladimirovich, he's furious, Maxim replied, rubbing his eyes. His shares fell even more after the scandal with Sokolov. Several major investors have already withdrawn their investments, and it looks like he's trying to find a new assistant, but no one wants to get involved with him after such a public disgrace. Excellent, Alexander nodded. That means he's weakened. Now we'll strike. Maxim, contact all of our former clients who were poached by Volkov. Offer them even more favorable terms to come back to us. Guarantee them compensation for their losses, and most importantly, offer them long-term contracts with fixed prices. Show them that we are reliable partners, not a flash in the pan. But Alexander Vladimirovich, that will cost us a fortune, Maxim exclaimed. We're barely staying afloat as it is. I know, Maxim, Alexander's voice was firm, but this is an investment in our future. We have to show them that we are willing to make sacrifices for our customers, and we have to show Volkov that we are not afraid to take risks. He thinks we are broken, but he is wrong. We're stronger than ever. Maxim agreed, albeit with some hesitation. He knew that Alexander always got what he wanted. And another thing, Maxim, Alexander added, I want you to contact all of our employees who left to work for Volkov. Ask them to come back. Offer them better terms than he can. Tell them that we value them, that we are ready to forgive them for their mistake, and that we will build a new, strong company together. Do you think they'll come back? Maxim asked. They betrayed us. People make mistakes, Maxim, Alexander replied. Sometimes they need a second chance, especially since Volkov treated them like expendable resources. He didn't value them. We'll show them that we're a family, that we care about each other. Maxim nodded. He had seen how Alexander had changed. He had become more human, more open, and that was inspiring. Over the next few days, Alexander and his team worked non-stop. They held meetings with former clients, convincing them to return. They called former employees, offering them new opportunities, and their efforts began to bear fruit. Alexander Vladimirovich, this is incredible, Maxim exclaimed as he entered Alexander's office. Half of our former clients have already returned, and several key employees too. They say that Volkov treated them like slaves, and that they missed our atmosphere. They say you're the best boss they've ever had. Alexander smiled. Excellent, Maxim. But this isn't over yet. We have to keep up the pressure. We have to show Volkov that his time is up. Meanwhile, the trial against Ksenia continued. She continued to lie, accusing Alexander of all kinds of mortal sins. But Alexander was ready for this. His lawyer, Igor Petrov, presented the court with irrefutable evidence that Ksenia was lying. He showed bank statements proving that she had spent huge sums of money on her whims while Alexander was working. He presented witness statements confirming that Ksenia herself was aggressive and greedy. Your Honor, my client is the victim of slander and blackmail, Igor Petrov declared. Ksenia Andreevna is trying to use this trial to get as much money out of my client as possible. She does not deserve a penny more than what is required by law. We ask the court to dismiss her claim for moral damages. The judge listened carefully to all the arguments. He could see that Ksenia was lying, her testimony was contradictory, and her behavior was hysterical. The court will now retire to consider its decision, said the judge. A few hours later, the judge returned. The court rules, the judge began. The marriage between Alexander Vetrov and Ksenia Vetrova is dissolved. Ksenia Vetrova's claim for moral compensation is dismissed. The property shall be divided in accordance with the marriage contract. Each party shall pay its own legal costs. Alexander felt a huge sense of relief. He was free. He was free from Ksenia, from her lies, from her greed. He was free to start a new life. Ksenia jumped up from her seat. What? How is this possible? You can't do this. It's not fair. I'll appeal. I'll destroy him. I won't let him live in peace. But her words no longer mattered. Alexander simply smiled and left the courtroom. He was the winner. After the divorce, Alexander focused entirely on his business. He continued to put pressure on Volkov, poaching his clients and employees. Volkov was losing ground, and his company was suffering huge losses. He tried to resist, but without Sokolov, he was helpless. One evening, Dmitry Volkov himself called Alexander. His voice was hoarse and broken. Vetrov, you won, Volkov said. I admit defeat. You destroyed me. You took everything from me. You're a worthless bastard. But I don't understand how you did it. How did you recover so quickly? How did you manage to defeat me? You destroyed yourself, Volkov, Alexander replied. You were too greedy, too cynical. You didn't value people. All you thought about was money. But I found something more important than money. I found meaning. I found a family. A family? Volkov laughed, but there was no joy in his laughter. Only bitterness. What nonsense are you talking about? You've always been just like me. You were always chasing money and power. You were always lonely. What's changed? Everything has changed, Volkov, Alexander said. I met someone who showed me that there are things more important than money. I met a child who filled my life with meaning, and now I know what I'm living for. And you're left alone, with your money and your emptiness. Volkov was silent. Then he hung up. Alexander knew he would never hear his voice again. The battle was over. Alexander had won. He drove to his country house. Nastya was already asleep. Victor was sitting by her crib, reading a book. It's over, Victor, Alexander said. I won. Volkov surrendered, and I'm free from Ksenia. We can start a new life. Victor smiled. I'm happy for you, Alexander. I'm very happy. You deserve it. You're not worthless. You're the best person I've ever met. We deserve it, Victor, Alexander replied. All of us. Now we can live in peace. We can be happy. He walked over to Nastya's crib. She was sleeping peacefully, her little face serene. Alexander stroked her cheek. My little one, he whispered. You changed my life. You made me a better person. You gave me meaning, and I will never forget that. He felt his heart fill with love. He was happy. He was truly happy for the first time in his life. 5 years passed. Vetrov Capital flourished, becoming an even more influential and respected company. Alexander Vetrov, once a cold and aloof billionaire, had become a wise and humane leader. His reputation as a businessman who valued not only profit but also people grew with each passing day. He was actively involved in charity work, opening orphanages, and helping families in need. Victor became an indispensable person in Alexander's life. Not only did he work successfully in one of Vetrov Capital's subsidiaries, but he also became a true friend and right-hand man to Alexander. They often spent time together discussing business and sharing news about Nastya. Victor, once broken and desperate, was now a confident man and a loving and caring father. He rented a small but cozy apartment in the suburbs where Alexander often came to visit. Nastya grew up a healthy and happy girl. She was smart, curious, and very cheerful. She called Alexander Dad and Victor Daddy, and this little family was her whole world. Alexander spent every free minute with Nastya. He taught her to read, play chess, and ride a bike. He took her on trips and showed her the world. Nastya was his light, his joy, his reason for living. After the divorce, Ksenia tried to start a new life, but her greed and malice prevented her from finding happiness. She lost most of her fortune in unsuccessful investments and was left alone. Her attempts to discredit Alexander in the press failed as his reputation was impeccable. She lived in the shadow of her past, perpetually dissatisfied and embittered. After his defeat, Dmitry Volkov disappeared from view. His company went bankrupt, and he himself, according to rumors, left the country, trying to start over. But his name was forever tarnished, and he was never able to restore his reputation. One warm summer evening, Alexander sat in his garden watching Nastya play with Victor. Nastya's laughter rang through the garden, filling his heart with warmth. "Daddy, Daddy, look what I can do!" Nastya shouted, showing how skillfully she could jump rope. Alexander smiled. He felt like the happiest man in the world. He had everything he needed: love, family, meaning. He no longer pursued money and power. He had found something much more valuable. "Victor, do you remember the day we met?" Alexander asked. Victor nodded. "Of course, Alexander, how could I forget? You saved me. You saved Nastya. You gave us a new life." "You saved me too, Victor," Alexander replied. "You showed me that there are things more important than money. You showed me that life has meaning, and I am grateful to you for that." They sat in silence, watching Nastya. The sun slowly sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It was the perfect end to a perfect day. Alexander Vetrov, the billionaire who once considered himself worthless and lonely, was now surrounded by love and meaning. He found happiness in the most unexpected circumstances, proving that even the darkest souls can find light if they open their hearts to goodness. And it all started with one decision that changed everything. Thanks for watching. It means a lot to me. Like and subscribe so you don't miss out. And leave a comment. It might change someone's perspective.